Hello. Thanks everybody for joining us, both in person and over Zoom. My name is Jay Diamond. I'm a teaching fellow and studio manager at the Baltimore Jewelry Center, and it's my pleasure tonight to introduce our speaker, one-month resident Chelsea Nanfelt Rowe. Chelsea Nanfelt Rowe is a jeweler, craft artist, and educator based in Little Rock, Arkansas, whose work invites others to reconsider the stories held by everyday materials. Using detritus and discarded objects, she creates jewelry that reflects on memory, transformation, and the human presence embedded in matter. She holds an MFA in Craft and Material Studies from Virginia Commonwealth University and is currently Communications Specialist for SNAG. An advocate for sustainability, she serves on the Advisory Council and Education Committee for Ethical Metalsmiths, chairs the So Fresh and So Clean exhibition, and contributes to the Radical Jewelry Makeover Artist Project. Her work has been exhibited nationally, including at the Metal Museum, Dransfield Jewelers, and the Pratt Institute, and she is also recently one of New York City Jewelry Week's One for the Future awardees. Through her ongoing work on projects like Humans Are Dust and Day by Day, Chelsea explores the aura materials carry, how we shape them, and how they shape us. She's always looking to connect with others who care about material ethics, material storytelling, and expanding the jewelry field. It's been a real delight getting to share the studio with Chelsea this past month, and when she returns home, I think I speak for all of us at the BJC when I say that she will be dearly missed. It's been really incredible to get to see her work her way from material to object and see the way that she figures out the relationships objects have to one another. But that's something I think she's probably more qualified to tell you about than I am. So I think without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Chelsea.
All right. That was so lovely. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Can you see that okay on Zoom? Perfect. Okay. Okay, that was so lovely. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining tonight, in all different time zones and everything. Start out with a little introduction. So my name is Chelsea. I'm truly honored to be this month's Emerging Artist in Residence here at the Baltimore Jewelry Center. It's a privilege to share my work and ideas with you today. Spending dedicated time here has been a dream of mine for a while. To begin, I'll share a little bit more background. I recently relocated from Virginia to Little Rock, Arkansas, which is also the hometown of Sarah Roberts, BJC's June intern. So it's been fun to be here together. I was born in Maine and grew up between New England and Wisconsin. So a little background there. This is the house I grew up in Maine, a place where I spent countless hours looking for and finding all kinds of things like ladybugs, craft sequins, ferns, moss, and fancy headbands. A true 90s kid, right? I also have fond memories of my mom pushing me in a stroller toward the lake. We would collect aluminum cans along the way and cash them in at the local grocery store. And then afterwards, we would treat ourselves with ice cream. So picking up trash and eating ice cream are still two of my favorite things to do. Not much has changed. The practice of searching or simply noticing what's around me has stayed with me into adulthood. In the Overstory, Richard Powers writes, "The thing people know for sure will change. There is no knowing for a fact. The only dependable things are humility and looking." I see the act of noticing as a kind of perspective shift. In exercise, in empathy, when selecting and working with materials. I learned this early on during my undergraduate internship with my professor and mentor, Yevgenia Kaganovich, while working on GROW, her ongoing research and art project. Kaganovich crochets and fuses disassembled plastic grocery bags into three-dimensional forms, stuffing them with remnants from the making process. Through these processes, plastic bags grow into jewelry and sculpture, pointing out and upending our associations with material value. As an intern, we collected and processed thousands of used single-use plastic bags, which showed me the overwhelming amount of synthetic waste material in our world. Kaganovich highlights slower craft processes while contrasting rapidly manufactured plastic bags populating the planet. This project has motivated and inspired me to look closely at the materials I use in my practice and to consider how each one is connected to others in complex ways, socially, politically, economically, environmentally. The list goes on, really. During my time at UW-Milwaukee for undergrad, I started examining the materials I used in my practice. At the time, I was exploring ways to connect my artwork more directly with others. For context, I originally set out to be an art therapist with the intention of working in a socially engaged capacity. It was during this period that I began to see material connections as visual metaphors for social connections. The recognition that, OMG, I really care about the feelings surrounding an object, maybe a little too much, also began back in my undergrad years. I was able to co-host Radical Jewelry Makeover with other coworkers at a school gallery in collaboration with co-directors Susie Gonch and Kathleen Kennedy. We worked to collect old unwanted jewelry from our local community. These donations were disassembled and given to jewelers to reimagine into new jewelry. Donors signed a contract acknowledging that their items will be melted down, hammered, cut, changed beyond recognition. These made-over pieces went out into the community through fundraising, sale, and exhibition, and then donors were also invited to share their story. So it's a really special event and project. Now, during the sorting process, I found myself with great hands from sorting through piles of charms, chains, and bangles. And I read one donor's story. He described the relief he felt when donating a small gold pendant and ring in a paper envelope from his late spouse. He had no one else to inherit these memories. In that moment, I was so struck by the enormous emotional weight we carry for the things we surround ourselves with. After undergrad, I continued working with the RJM Artist Project and Ethical Metalsmiths Emerging Jeweler Program. At this time, I continued to explore the sentimental weight and meaning our materials possess. In 2022, I relocated to Richmond, Virginia to go to graduate school at Virginia Commonwealth University. I had the chance to really dive into materials, collecting and contextualizing mundane objects. While looking through my studio bins, I opened a bag of hair curlers, once belonging to my late grandmother. It smelled just like her. There were even pieces of her delicate gray hair embedded in the curler foam. I altered the materials using metalsmithing techniques. I used the hydraulic press jeweler, saw, and rolling mill, I gave life to the materials by reimagining their existence. Manipulating the hair curlers, I was able to cling on to the fading scent and memories that I missed. Soon after this project, I embarked on a 4x4-foot huggable, leanable wall called the Exaggerated Self-Portrait. I intended to hold a space for people to take a moment to rest. Using the scale of furniture, the body is enveloped into the bosom of the quilted sculpture. I leaned into the foam and am reminded of the support my family gives me when I rest into it. I feel the soft textures and fading residues of family. My family and identity are embodied in this work, inviting the audience to rest a moment too. As an artist and now educator, now one of my favorite art studio rules from Sister Corita Kent is to consider everything an experiment in the studio. That mindset has guided me through many things, but it especially guided me through the Connecting series in 2023. While working on this series, I started making 60 quick watercolor paintings. These were intuitive sketches that felt both functional and fluid. I then translated those forms into jewelry. That mix between materials, dimensions, and function helped me explore a sense of interconnection that I'm still investigating in my work today. In this work, I was thinking about the connection between people, objects, and surroundings. A meditation in my artistic practice has been to notice what I notice, which feels especially important when moving ink across paper and collaging materials intuitively. When working with found objects, I collect materials with intention, often finding something that sparkles unexpectedly out of the corner of my eye, just waiting to become something special. Even if I don't always know how they'll be used, there's some kind of listening involved. Some materials call to me, and others I choose to leave behind. I also choose materials intuitively, guided by emotional responses to their color, texture, and form. And of course, I can't pick up everything. I've learned that this is part of the practice too. So for example, I boxed up this rubber piece embedded with small pebbles and boxed it up and moved it across the state with me to grad school. So from one town to another city. I had no idea what it would become, and it shuffled around my studio for months, possibly years. Actually, I think it was a few years. But I knew that it carried possibility. And it wasn't until grad school that I found a place for it in my work. At one point, I did try saying yes to all of the materials. I think that's a lot of artists might be able to relate to that. While living in Harrisonburg, Virginia, I started the HVA recycling project. I collected recyclables from friends and small businesses with the understanding that I might transform their hot pink muffin trays from Costco, laundry jugs, and teal cardboard fruit boxes into artwork. That experience taught me a lot about material abundance and also my limits. The role of assembly became more important in my work too around this time. I collage seemingly unfit materials in context with each other. For example, a yellow rumble strip shard picked up by my husband Keenan is paired with amethyst beads gifted to me by my grandmom. And this color is deeply tied to memories of my late Aunt Mimi. The color blue especially the blue and the blueberries, is a quiet tribute to my mom and my childhood in Maine. I'll go back so you can see. I tell stories through my work, not necessarily to direct, but to engage the imagination. I rely on my imagination and experience when creating the pieces, but each viewer will bring their unique lens to my jewelry. My curiosities lie in the fuzzy aura of human life that encircles the materials. Do our materials possess life? Or do we imbue and inject materials in our world with personalities reflective of ourselves? I'm motivated to highlight the stories infused in and witnessed by the things we surround ourselves with and use daily. It was supposed to house life is a necklace completed in 2023. I'm honored to be able to say this piece was in the grad show here last year. So little side note there. But so making this piece through the fabrication process, I was able to infuse intention, skill, and efforts into materials, visually reverberating, sewn beads and tacked down threads, attempt to reach the boxes, yet fail. Old jewelry and knickknack boxes with handwriting from my Grammy are pinned in motion to steel frames. I wanted to hold on to the touch, read life, that surrounded the boxes at one point when my Grammy was living. This ongoing series communicates my futile attempts to hold on to life, contrasted by the vibrant new life materials used to make the jewelry. In the book, The Hair with Amber Eyes, author and potter Edmund DeWall says, "All of this matters because my job is to make things. How objects get handled, used, and handed on is not just a mildly interesting question for me, it is my question. I have made many, many thousands of pots. By looking at a mug, he understands how it will feel, function, and react to the hand." Some of his clients also talk about the life of the pot. DeWall reacts by saying, "And as a potter, I do find it a bit strange when people who have my pots talk of them as if they are alive. I'm not sure I can cope with the afterlife of what I have made, but some of the objects seem to retain the pulse of their making. In my studio, I take time to consider what the object may have meant to the giver before it found its way to me, and search for ways to hold on to its vibrant life before disassembling and using it. It's a hopeful and often vulnerable gesture to give something personal to an artist. Now that I've completed a few of these pieces, family and friends gift me materials to work with. I receive each gift with gratitude, bringing it into my studio and adding it to my material library. I've continued this exploration through different iterations, using shards from a broken mug, clustering used beads, and repurposing everyday materials. The cultural meaning of my work is often fluid. It shifts over time and varies depending on who's viewing it. Still, the materials I choose often reveal something about life, use, and context. Patterned fabrics and drinkware often point to domestic spaces, which is something I reflect on often. Plastic remnants speak to my concerns about our human-made environments and waste. And old reworked jewelry expresses my social curiosities and connections to other people. I also had the opportunity to create a smaller version of the brooch you just saw. So this was in BJC's ornamental last year, so thank you for that. Someday I'll go to Ornamenta in person.
Yeah.
Wanna go. All right. Incorporating wood into my work allows me to draw on the quiet wisdom we so often associate with trees and the natural world. I believe that materials carry wisdom, especially those that have been used, loved, and cared for over time. Perhaps wisdom is not the right word. What about empathy? Empathy functions culturally, socially, inwardly, and in the artist's studio. Within the lives of our things, empathy is a deep communication or consideration of a thing. I question if the materials I use are already infused with empathy or if I am extending empathy toward the material. Along with the focus on materials and their meanings, I often use found objects and scale as a tool in my jewelry making. I examine traditional conventions of how large a piece should be or what it's made of when worn on the body. So think diamond engagement rings, pearl necklaces, charm bracelets. And I aim to broaden understandings of what jewelry really can be. I use materials in my jewelry to locate myself in history as well. I source them from daily experiences and social interactions, often from my studio, walks around the city, or exchanges with people in life. Environmental concerns and hopeful perspectives challenge me to work with discarded materials that might otherwise end up in landfills or embedded in the ground over time. So I relocated to Little Rock, Arkansas, right? And was blown away by how lush and green it is. I spent time biking, discovering lakes, and even learning to garden in the fall, which felt pretty mind-boggling since it's the fall. That season became a time of reflection, especially just after grad school, reflection on change, growth, and hope. As I made work for my first solo show at Dransfield Jewelers in Richmond, Virginia. Building on my previous curiosities, I examined how our materials reflect our human experiences once again. I was thinking a lot about growth emerging from well-trodden ground as almost a hopeful resistance. I was also thinking about growth as a synthetic human-made addition versus organic growth in nature. Rather than projecting my own assumptions onto the materials I selected, I remained open to whatever they might offer, collaging and looking for open-ended outcomes. I believe this methodology is a way to adapt, change, and grow. I found myself curious about even the smallest rain droplet, how it nourished the plants I was spending time with, and how it served as a reflection of our own needs for nourishment, both physically and emotionally. I was exploring materials gathered from Richmond. So all the rubber pieces are from Richmond. Also from my backyard in Arkansas. It's a lot of things I found back there, like plastic flowers and marbles and this Wilson tennis ball felt. Also from vintage gems from a local bead store. More beads from RJM as well, and my travels. I was attempting to capture the sense of growth and movement found in nature, much like the way jewelry moves and shifts when worn. I also thought about how to abstract smaller moments from some larger ideas and pieces in the body of work. exploring wearability through this work, even though some of these pieces were a little bit large. While they were created during quiet moments in my studio with a view out to the backyard, it was such a treat to see them out in the world, worn by friends in Richmond. So now to Baltimore. Over the past few weeks, I've been appreciating a new to me environment here in Baltimore. One of my favorite things has been seeing how plants take over the city, climbing and spilling over the walls. There's a kind of relationship in that growth, a sort of persistence. But there's also tension between the built and the wild, control and spontaneity. Noticing this movement between the built and natural environment has been quite inspiring over these last few weeks. The last few weeks have also given me the space to explore a wide range of ideas and materials. I really enjoyed a few demos. So bead making with mercury, a gold demo from Molly, and also learning about pearls and mother of pearl with Margot and Jay, a visit to the Baltimore Gem Cutters Guild, sharing meals with new friends and more. So I'm really leaving with a full heart and more projects to keep me going. I want to take a moment to thank the BJC staff and community for being so welcoming, supportive, and inspiring during my very first residency. It's been incredibly special to spend time in this space and work alongside of all of you. Thank you. All right, and then I'll go ahead and stop here, and then I think we're gonna wander to the hallway. Yeah. See the close-ups. So cute. Thank you. Yeah, this. I'm turning the square cubes into a round mug. But this one's got a face. Oh, it totally does. Mine too, which is great. Oh, we're so very cute. Today, all of us. That's weird.
And I think we have
Jay.
time for questions. If anybody has any questions, comments.
Jay, can you hear me? It's Lydia. I have a question.
I did.
I know, it was a hot day today.
Nobody in person wants to break the ice with any questions. I might ask if you can talk a little bit about your approach to color when you're working.
Yeah. A lot of times, you'll notice that in several of the pieces, there's a specific color that's tying something together. Either it'll be something kind of neutral or it'll have kind of a pop to it. So I'm thinking about this brooch here, like these hot pink strings and this green here. I see the connections between materials as a metaphor between people and surroundings and objects. And so I really want to use colors that are going to pop. So this piece here is actually, it's much more subtle than I'll typically do. So we've got kind of this softer pink. So I was able to experiment a little bit with that there. And then we have these green kind of sprouts here.
I was wondering, how do you decide when to go about like connecting something and when to like leave it alone, I guess, when you decide something's finished?
Oh, when something's finished?
Yeah, that might be a better.
Sure. Like how to connect it based on like the type of material.
Or just how you decide that like you want this to be something that dangles below rather than a pair of earrings itself, or how do you decide like this is done? I'm
Yeah,
done.
that's a good question. I think, sorry, clarifying. When I'm making a piece, I have to be surprised by it. And so I think, like, I don't want to be overwhelmed. Like, I do love like detail, right? Like more is more. And I do tend to lean into that direction. But I think oftentimes I'll let something be what it is and then add the knots in there, to like simply as a connection point. So some of it is pragmatic. A lot of times I'll collage something together on my bench. And a lot of times, especially using found objects, I have no idea how the heck I'm gonna how I'm gonna connect things. And so typically my process is I'll collect my materials, we'll get semi-organized or categorized, and then I'll disassemble them, collage them together on my bench. And sometimes those collages get made into an actual piece of jewelry or a sculpture, and sometimes they don't. It just depends. So, but yeah, typically I'll wait until I feel satisfied. Like some of it is kind of intuition. Okay, like this feels like enough. Like Mercury and I were chatting briefly yesterday about these beads. Like I had spent time carving on kind of a new skin on these beads. And my instinct is often to, like tie them all together and make this like massive cluster. And Mercury was, well, the bead is a thing in itself. Like it totally is. And so I think that's been one of the really special things about being at the BJC is like, learning all these different methodologies and lenses of viewing artwork and materials, and yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but
That's great. Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions?
You had mentioned clusters.
Mhm.
So you do a lot with like quantity and a lot with like repetition. What is, you want to talk about like that role? And
Yeah.
what that means in the work?
Yeah. So with repetition, again, it's sort of one of those things where like I need to, my eyes need to be satisfied. And so sometimes that comes down to repetition. I also like with repetition where there's moments that you can get lost. Repetition also sometimes creates a grid pattern of kinds where it's a way to organize materials too. I think about like beads and knots as like molecules of energy, or like bursts of energy. And so when I'm clustering something together, I see that as like a cluster of energy that I'm able to create visually and physically. And so, yeah. Yeah, and with these here too, like the beads, this is more of a recent exploration, but drilling into wood and letting the beads sort of emerge out of the wood here. That's a lot about, I've been thinking about growth and sort of emerging from a place where it's not supposed to grow. Like I think that idea is really beautiful because growth isn't comfortable, like I grew up moving around quite a bit, so I was always really used to growth. But I found that like the older I get, kind of year by year, I'm more resistant. And so this is a way for me to work through some of that growth, that we all really experience.
Lydia Martin in the chat says, I'm curious to hear more about how your pieces act as a stand-in for a personal embodiment of life, remembrance, or attachment.
Mm.
How the new relationship created in the work has echoes of what came before, and how this plays a role in your decision to make things wearable.
Did you read that one more time? I feel like it was like a twofer, which is great. I have to like stare at the wall on this.
How your pieces stand in as an embodiment of life, remembrance, or attachment, and how the relationship created in the work echoes what came before, and how that plays into your decision to make things wearable.
Yeah, so I think thinking about life, there's sort of a starting point to this idea of trying to capture life. A few years ago, I lost quite a few family members in the span of just a few years. And so I was thinking about how can you possibly hold on to that person? How can you hold on to that feeling when they're gone, right? And so when someone is gone, sometimes there's, I don't know if you've seen these, but there's pendants or rings where you can put someone's ashes into a ring or something like that. That's a conversation I remember talking to my dad about several years ago, and we're like, how does that work? Like, I don't know, like I have these pendants here that are they've got my grandmother's initials on here, and a few other folks too. But for me, this is a way to keep them close, right? Like, that's something about jewelry that I really love. But capturing life in an object, like, I think, or even capturing a person, capturing an essence of a person, that's always my goal, or even capturing like our human activities within an object. That's my, like, that's one of my quests. And so to do that, I think going back to Margot's question, like the repetition and sort of infusing my own hand into an object in a repetitive manner is infusing, you know, my own attention and energy back into a thing, right? Yeah. And I think that'll be my forever question. Like, how do you do that? You know? Do you see the second part of the question?
The decision to make things wearable, but I think you may have already touched on
Decision to make things wearable?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I do make sculptures, but I just adore how jewelry, when worn, it's in movement, right? Like, I think that also allows the jewelry to embody life. So when it's worn. So that's something that I've been working on over the last year, is making jewelry that is more wearable. And then, like, let's say with this piece here, this is a mug, right? So, or half of a mug. So this isn't so wearable, but
it is if you're brave.
right, exactly. Yeah, like I've got pins here kind of keeping it from falling. But with pieces like that, like that's where I get to that's where I really get to throw my ideas out into the world, and that's where I get to throw my ideas out into the world. And I've been working on taking bite-sized pieces from the things that I'm making and making like slightly more like wearable scale, or jewelry that's more wearable in scale. But
I have a question about that specifically.
yeah.
So are you making those like smaller, more wearable pieces with the goal of like seeing them living in the world, or with the goal of like profiting off of your work?
At this point right now, just to see them in the world. I also see them as like tests too. Like this piece here was something where I was like, okay, I have this idea. I'm gonna see how it works in the smaller scale so that I can do this in a larger scale. So sometimes that's how that emerges. But yeah, not necessarily to profit off of it, at least at this stage in life. Yeah,
I have a.
yeah.
So I was wondering, when you come across like a found object, is it something that's like you feel an object calling you, or are you fishing for it and that's when you find?
Not necessarily, so it's not like an audible, like I hear it calling to me. Sometimes I want to make that distinction, I say that. But a lot of times it'll be like something sparkles in the corner of my eye. Okay, this could be really special. Sometimes, one of the pieces that you saw in the presentation was this kind of rectangular box with blue beads going around it. And so the box was gifted to me by my family friend. And then I was like, okay, there's this really fantastic royal blue in this box. And I need like, I don't know what I'm gonna do for this, because I had previously created this kind of this neck piece and beaded it, and it was white. So I had this kind of strapping that was, yeah, canvas colored. Anyway, so this was kind of in the back of my mind, but I wasn't so much searching for it yet. Like, what was it gonna be? And some of that is because I've always got several projects happening. So like, that way I can let a piece sit on the back burner. Sometimes I'll put things in boxes or bins and just kind of let them sit. But, and like wait for the perfect, like aha moment. But this piece though, with the rectangular box, I was walking my dog Zemo in Richmond and looked over and was like, oh my gosh, there's a royal blue belt. And like it was one of those things that like, it's like, how did that happen? It's so serendipitous, that's crazy. And so I was like, okay, cool, now I can work on this. So I watched that thing like over and over and over and over, because yeah, I mean, there's a part of like cleanliness that does feel safe, you know, when working with it. But yeah, it was just a corded belt and worked out perfectly. But yeah, but there's materials that I'll pass by for months or weeks and won't collect them because I don't know what they're gonna be yet. So you saw a few pieces that had these kind of rubber bases, like this brooch with a rubber circle, and then this necklace with a rubber kind of base as well. In Richmond, I passed by this park for 2 years, and wow, those are really fantastic. Like some of the shapes related to the body or the hand in some way. But I mean, playground rubber is a weird material. And so I wasn't so sure what it was gonna end up as. And then finally, after 2 years of passing by this stuff, because no one wants that, right? Like it's kind of dirty and it's kind of gross, everyone steps on it all the time. But after 2 years of passing by this stuff, finally I was like, oh my gosh, that's the same. I mean, it's like stomach sized. It's like perfect. I'm gonna make this necklace with this stomach sized brooch. So I'm thinking about scale as I'm collecting materials, right? Like I'm thinking about color, I'm thinking about scale, thinking about the body and movement. Also thinking about like, do I know how to work with this material? Is it safe? Or do I know someone that knows how to work with the material? So yeah.
I also have a follow-up question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm curious in that, like, what is your relationship to waiting? Like, does waiting feel, does waiting for the perfect thing feel frustrating? Or is it kind of like a peaceful thing that you feel like waiting for the serendipity?
Yeah.
It doesn't bother you?
It kind of doesn't bother me a whole lot. And I think like, I chatted a little at the beginning about growing up, like we would spend time in the backyard. Like I would go and collect things in the backyard and put them in little jars. Like I've always had this practice of finding things or just searching for things that again, like had that like spark for me. And so in my studio, it doesn't frustrate me so much. I think one of my methods in the studio is, like lunch trays, right? So I'll have lots of lunch trays. This is something a professor of mine in undergrad taught me. It was like, have a lunch tray for a project and that way you can put it away. So I have all these lunch trays just kind of in my studio. And it's great because I can put something away if I don't feel interested or don't quite know yet. If it's something that I want to spend time on. So there is a lot of waiting. That's one thing that's been interesting about a 1 month residency to me. It's like, and sort of eye-opening too. Because you've got a month, right? Like you want to work through your ideas fast. At least I do. Because it's exciting, right? Like you're here, there's people here, there's input from all sorts of people, like, so, yeah. But, yeah, waiting is, yeah, that's interesting. I like that. You brought that up, but it's totally part of my process.
Lydia Martin in the chat says, I find it interesting that your setting methods often capture the materials in the same way that you're attempting to capture the essence of what is in the materials. You mentioned knots, etc., and it definitely comes through. Beautiful work.
Thank you. Thank you, screenshot. Thank you, Lydia.
Oh, this is recorded. It's going to be on YouTube.
Hey, okay, I'll listen to that.
Yeah, like, so, like even looking at this, I can kind of see this balance between like recognizable and alien, like kind of, or not alien, but like strange use of material.
Yeah.
Like what is the role of familiarity in an object versus like, how important is it to like disambiguate it so far from its like identity? Original identity.
That's a really good question, and it's something, that's a question I ask myself often in the studio, like, how do I feel about the fact that this is a mug and it looks like a mug? I think a lot of times the more recognizable things is, it's somewhere to start, right? Like, the last piece that I made with a shard from this mug, I had a few family members come up to me, is that great grandma's mug? And so like, and maybe there's an association for another viewer, right? Like, I think that when you're viewing artwork, you're gonna enter that, you're gonna enter the like kind of like presentation with your own perspective, right? Like, I'm gonna look at this and be like, okay, this blue reminds me of my grandma, my great grandma, something. Maybe for someone else, it reminds them of a cool time they went thrifting or time they had like some good instant coffee or like, so anyways, so I don't know, I was thinking of very specific memories that I've had with this mug. So anyways, but there's all sorts of different perspectives, and I see that as, again, like a starting point. And with that, I want to create this this tension between familiar and sort of strange, because I want to, again, like, I want to be surprised when I'm making something, and I want it to feel, I want there to be enough detail. I want it to feel strange enough, but familiar enough that, like the viewer feels like curious. Like, I want you to get in there in those details. Yeah.
Can you say, you mentioned color during your presentation, and I don't remember the exact words you used, but I just remember it resonated with me. I think you said maybe it's emotional or something like that. Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I know, You asked about color before, and I think I zoned in on a few things, but with color, a lot of times I'll choose a specific color because of like more of a sentimental reason for me. So like some colors remind me of a person or a specific place. And then I have these pops of color that I want to use as a sort of like an exclamation point with the other colors that I'm choosing. And I understand that like everyone is gonna have their own perspective with the colors, right? Like it's not universal that this color pink reminds me of this thing from, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever. And so sometimes when I'm making my work, because it is so process heavy, I'll be making it and thinking about the meaning like as I'm working along. And so yeah, like the colors vary, but I tend to have these sort of like subtler or softer kind of sweetheart colors with like pops of red or neon or something like that. Again, highlighting the energy in a connection.
And I think I have one last question.
Boy.
Chelsea, did you know that residencies like yours and programs like our graduate exhibition are funded entirely by donations?
No.
We are currently in the middle of our summer fundraiser. It's one of the best opportunities to donate all year because all of our donations during summer fundraiser are matched to our board up to $32,500 for a total of $65,000. That is our fundraising goal. There are a lot of ways to support our summer fundraiser and make residencies like yours possible. If you are local, we've got benefit events coming up with Red Thorn Tattoo, Dutch Courage, and Auto Bar. If you are not local to Baltimore, you can also find out more about our summer fundraiser at baltimorejewelrycenter.org/summer fundraiser.
On it.
And you can support programs like our residencies and our exhibitions at baltimorejewelrycenter.org/donate.
I've heard good things about the tattooing event, by the way.
I've heard good things about Baltimore Jewelry Center.
Also the Baltimore, yeah.
I've heard things about the Baltimore Jewelry Center. I don't know if you guys have been there.
Once again, that is baltimorejewelrycenter.org/donate.
It's magical.
Thank you so much, Chelsea.
Thank you.